In a world of diamonds and silk, the most dangerous thing wasn't behind the glass, it was the bias behind the counter. A black woman walked into a luxury store, calm, composed, and wrongly accused. But they chose the wrong target. She wasn't just any customer, she was trained, decorated, and ready to turn quiet injustice into a national reckoning. If you're ready to see what happens when silence meets strength, subscribe now, like this video, and join us for the full story. Inside the elegant store, chilled air mixed with the scent of lilies and money. The lights danced on diamonds, and silk wallpaper muffled every whisper. She moved gracefully, her crisp blouse and natural curls setting her apart, not because she tried to, but because the room was built to notice difference. The tension wasn't new to her. It never is. But it always cuts deep. A woman in designer cashmere watched her, narrowed her eyes, and planted a seed of judgment with a quiet comment to a clerk. Suspicion bloomed with practiced ease. The woman, streaming live, hinted to her viewers with saccharine malice, "Just shopping, hope security's watching." The store manager, noticing the unease, chose the easy route. He called the police. When the officer arrived, confidence oozing from his posture, he didn't ask questions. He scanned the room and walked straight to her, his voice loud, rehearsed. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me." The store fell silent. Conversations froze. She didn't resist. But what they didn't realize was that the real reckoning had just walked through their front door. Even the sound of jewelry seemed to stop. Raven turned calmly to face the officer. "On what grounds?" she asked softly. Thompson smirked, offended by the question. "We've had a report of suspicious behavior," he said, his hand hovering near his cuffs. "Best if you cooperate." Across the room, Denise's phone kept filming. Her smile was smug, and the staff stood frozen, unsure and unwilling to speak. Raven took in the room. She could have ended this with a sentence revealed her authority, but chose to wait. The truth was never in what people said, but in what they did. Thompson stepped closer. The sound of his boots on the marble floor broke the silence. Raven didn't move, her posture calm and open, but Denise mistook it for guilt. "She's stealing," Denise shouted, her voice now loud and clear. Caught red-handed. Her phone streamed live. Heads turned, customers froze. The store manager lingered near the door, doing nothing. Thompson looked at Denise, gave a slight nod, then turned back to Raven. "Let's make this easy. Hand over the bracelet and stand up." Raven raised an eyebrow. "I've stolen nothing," she said evenly. "And you have no reason to assume I have." Denise gasped theatrically, yelling to the crowd, "I saw her. I saw everything." Thompson didn't verify. He didn't ask questions. He didn't check cameras. Instead, he lunged forward and grabbed Raven's wrist. Gasps rippled through the store. A man near the watches began filming. A teenage girl clutched her mother's arm. The illusion of civility shattered. Raven stood when pulled, but as Thompson forced her wrist behind her back, she held firm. "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice low but steady. "This can be resolved quietly," Thompson barked. "And yet you choose spectacle," Raven replied. She didn't fight, but she wouldn't be handled. Frustrated, Thompson pushed her down onto a bench. Phones rose, eyes locked on them. Raven stayed poised, back straight, breath calm. "Consider your next move carefully," she told him. Her words weren't loud, but they carried weight. Thompson sneered. "You people always think you can talk your way out," he muttered, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Silence fell. The teenage girl gasped. A man shook his head, appalled. Still no one stepped in. The handcuffs snapped shut, cold and final. Raven sat still, her hands resting on her legs, head held high. She wouldn't lower herself. Not now. Not ever. Denise zoomed in gleefully, her voice smug. "There you have it," she said, practically glowing. "Another thief who thought she could get away with it." But across the store, confusion began to spread. A few customers exchanged uncertain looks. "Is there even proof?" Someone whispered. "Did she take anything?" Another asked. Raven heard them. A flicker of validation lit inside her. The truth was beginning to surface. Thompson, still oblivious, yanked her to her feet. "You're coming with me," he barked, dragging her toward the door. Raven let him, but turned her head slightly. Her voice sliced through the silence. "You're arresting the wrong person. And when this is over, it won't be forgotten." Thompson scoffed, but his eyes wavered for the first time. Then, at the far end of the store, the glass door opened with a soft click. A tall man in a charcoal suit entered, badge flashing under the lights. His eyes locked on Raven. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by cold, professional focus. Deputy Chief Elias Moreno crossed the store in quick, purposeful steps. "Officer, release her. Now." His voice cracked through the room like a whip. Thompson turned confused. "Sir, this woman is your commanding officer's commanding officer," Moreno said sharply. "Remove those cuffs immediately." Gasps rippled through the store. Denise S.'s phone shook in her hand. Reality hit. Thompson froze, reaching for his belt with a stutter. But she was suspected of. Moreno cut him off. "You put your hands on Commander Raven Holloway, the highest-ranking SWAT commander in the state, based on the word of a civilian. No evidence. No investigation." His voice carried like a verdict. Silence fell, thick and stunned. Even the store's soft background music faded. Thompson paled as he fumbled with the key, finally releasing the cuffs. They clattered to the floor. Raven stepped back, calm, rubbing her wrist once without a word. Moreno turned to her with respect. "Commander Holloway," he said quietly, his tone shifting with reverence. "I'm sorry for what you've endured," Moreno said. "Effective immediately, Officer Thompson is suspended." He turned to him. "Badge and weapon. Now." The crowd murmured. "That's her," someone said. "A hero." Another voice, he didn't even ask her name. Thompson's hands trembled as he handed over his badge. His face was red, stunned. Denise stood frozen, phone shaking. She realized too late this was all being recorded. Raven looked at Thompson. "You treated me like a criminal," she said, "because you thought you could. And you'd do it to any black woman not wearing this badge." Her voice was calm, cutting deeper than anger ever could. Moreno stepped in. "We'll escort him out. A full investigation starts now." As Thompson was led away, Raven stood firm. The manager stammered. "We didn't know." Raven raised her hand. "Not now. I'm filing a misconduct report. On scene." "Of course," Moreno said, opening a tablet. "Include the store, the false report, and Thompson's force," Raven added. The manager went pale. Denise's stream, still live, had caught it all. Judgment shifted. The shame no longer sat on Raven but on the room. Justice wasn't done yet, but it had started. That night, the footage hit the news. Denise's video went viral. 2 days later, Raven reviewed the case with Internal Affairs. A photo showed Denise's husband, Councilman Richard Cranston, on the Oversight Committee. Another image showed him with Thompson. "This wasn't random," Raven said. She knew he'd act. Worse, a private group chat linked to Denise had shared videos of black professionals in rich neighborhoods. They weren't just watching, they were targeting. Raven closed the file. This wasn't a moment. It was a system, and it was time to expose it. Some cops didn't just look away, they took part. "This wasn't about theft," Raven said. "It was about control. About making people like me feel unwelcome." Elise nodded. "And this time they picked the wrong woman." Raven stood up. "We exposed them all." Elise smiled. "Good. Let's begin." Meanwhile, across town, Richard Cranston sat in a private room, panicking. "You were supposed to keep it quiet," he hissed at Denise. But it was too late. The story had gone public and now it was out of their hands. Back at headquarters, Raven and Elise reviewed case after case, inflated charges, missing footage, minority victims, same group of officers. Thompson wasn't alone. The system had protected them. But the pattern was under Raven Bull now. "We bring this to the public," Elise said. "No cover-ups." Raven agreed just as her phone rang. "Chief Mercer." "Great work," the chief said. "But let's not damage public trust." Raven replied coldly, "We're not damaging trust. We're telling the truth. We're following the facts," Raven said. A long pause. Then Mercer replied, "I'm forming a special internal review. All actions go through me now." Raven hung up. Her face stayed calm, but she and Elise both understood Mercer was trying to shut them down. "We move faster," Elise said. "And louder," Raven added. Outside, protests grew. Inside, a different battle was beginning. Back in her office, Raven stared out at the city. The sun was setting. Her desk was buried in files, years of cover-ups and quiet injustice. She thought about what pursuing this would cost: careers, reputations, maybe the last threads of public trust. But she also thought about her first year at the academy, being watched, doubted, underestimated. She had stayed because the badge meant protection and purpose, because someone had to be the face of justice for those who had never seen one. Now doing nothing would be the real betrayal. Slowly she stood and opened a drawer. Inside was a photo of her younger self with her grandfather, civil rights marches behind him, hope in their eyes. She remembered his words, "Change is heavy. You carry it or someone else bleeds for it." Raven returned to her desk. Her decision was made. She would carry it. No more silence. No more fear. Only truth. Raven placed the photo down, opened her laptop, and started connecting files fast, focused, relentless. Outside, chants grew louder. Inside, truth was coming. This time the lies would fall. That night she stepped outside and froze. Her car was wrecked. Windshield smashed. Slurs carved into the door. She didn't panic. She documented everything, then called Elise. "They're sending a message," she said. "You okay?" Elise asked. "Yes," Raven replied. She locked the door, secured the files, and checked the windows. Calm. Focused. "They're scared," Elise said. "They should be," Raven answered. "This just got real." Elise found more. Emails from department heads. Same names over and over. "It's deeper than we thought," she said. "Commanders, supervisors, maybe city officials, they're sloppy," Raven replied. "They'll slip. We'll be ready." They ended the call. Raven stood alone, the attack on her car still fresh. But fear wasn't in her. Only resolve. If they thought they could silence her, they'd underestimated the wrong woman. That night she drove with caution. A black sedan followed her, too steady to be random. She didn't panic. She stayed calm, clipped her hidden cam on, and turned into a busy gas station. As expected, the sedan followed. 2 men stepped out. Off-duty cops trying to intimidate. They approached with fake smiles and casual menace. "Out late, Commander," one said. Raven didn't flinch. "Is there a reason you're following me?" Her voice was cold, controlled. They smirked, but the power was already shifting. She wasn't backing down. Not tonight, not ever. The heavier man leaned in, voice low. "Careful, Commander. Accidents happen after dark." It wasn't a threat, but it didn't need to be. Raven stayed calm, letting her hidden camera catch their faces under the bright gas station lights. "If you're trying to scare me," she said flatly, "you're wasting time." He smirked, but his eyes tightened. "Just advice." "Noted," she replied coldly. She turned, got in her car, and drove off without looking back. They watched, irritated. What they meant as intimidation became evidence. Raven felt no fear, only clarity. By sunrise, she was at Internal Affairs. The building was quiet. Her office should have been untouched, but something was off. The chair was moved. A drawer cracked open. A flash drive sat dead center on her desk. Raven didn't touch it. She backed away, recording everything on her secure app. A knock broke the silence. Daniel Elroy, security supervisor, stood outside with a clipboard. "Commander Holloway," he said stiffly. "I need to discuss a matter of concern." His eyes flicked to the flash drive. Raven didn't move. The message was clear. This wasn't over. "A suspicious item was found during maintenance," Elroy said, reciting someone else's script. "I've been instructed to initiate a search." "By who?" Raven asked, calm but cold. "Verbal orders," he replied. "No paper trail, no oversight, just a setup." Raven blocked the doorway. "Procedure 17 billion requires official documentation, witnesses, and full recording," she said. Elroy hesitated. "We can handle this quietly." "No," Raven snapped. "We'll do it by the book." She photographed everything: the flash drive, Elroy, security panels. Within minutes, legal was summoned, auditors notified, and body cams activated. When Elroy entered under full supervision, Raven stood firm. The flash drive was bagged and logged. Hours later, forensics confirmed it was planted. It held fake files, sloppy attempts to frame her for corruption. Cameras showed her office was clean the night before. Someone used a stolen master badge to break in. Only senior staff had access. This wasn't just rogue officers anymore. It reached the top. They had tried threats, sabotage, now false charges. All it did was prove how scared they were. In the forensics room, watching footage with Elise, Raven felt no fear. Just focus. They had overplayed their hand. And now she had everything she needed to bring them down. Elise typed fast, eyes locked on the screen. She cracked the last layer of encryption and turned to Raven. I found it. The emails looked routine memos, schedules, reviews, but hidden deep inside, buried under fake labels and doctored timestamps, was a system built not to expose misconduct, but to erase it. Codename, Silent Shields. It was a network disguised as reform, created to hide abuse, delete footage, silence witnesses, and protect officers too valuable or too connected to touch. Thompson's name came up often as violations all neatly marked resolved. But what froze Raven was seeing Chief Mercer's name listed not as a bystander but an architect. She hadn't just covered it up, she ran it. Emails between Mercer and Thompson revealed the plan: track high-value targets, intimidate quietly, avoid audits. Raven read them in silence, anger building. This wasn't carelessness. It was policy. It explained everything: why complaints disappeared, why abusers thrived, why those who pushed back were punished. Elise closed the laptop. They tried to break you because you wouldn't bend. Raven looked out the window. Everything she'd worked for had led here, proof that the system's rot was by design. We don't do this quietly, she said. We expose them in broad daylight. Elise nodded. They'd take it to the oversight committee and the press. Silent Shields would fall in the same light they feared most. Together they began building the case: names, dates, files. Every lie they uncovered became a weapon of truth. This time no shield would protect them. They knew Mercer wouldn't fall without a fight, and Thompson's allies would push back hard. But the evidence was solid, and Raven had no interest in backing down. That morning she met Daniel Knox in a quiet corner of an old cafe. No cameras, no attention, just cracked leather booths and truth on the table. She slid a flash drive toward him. It looked small, but it held the power to shake the city. Daniel, a sharp, respected journalist, asked only once, "You sure?" Raven nodded. The plan was clear: leak enough to ignite national pressure, but not enough to compromise ongoing indictments. "I'll layer the release," Daniel said. "Build pressure slow, verified sources only." Raven agreed. "Focus on Silent Shields and Mercer's role. 48 hours. By next morning, headlines exploded. Secret network shielded abyss of cops. Police chief linked to corruption ring. Protests grew louder. Crowds swarmed the jewelry store and courthouse. Online, Silent Shields trended globally. The department spun into chaos. Officers resigned, desks were emptied in the night, files shredded in locked rooms. Mid-level leaders tried to deny involvement. Too late. The investigation had already traced every move. Mercer, once untouchable, stood alone. Her allies vanished. The mayor distanced himself, promising a full review. The shield they built in silence was breaking, and this time, everyone was watching. City council members who once backed her now called for accountability. The police union, sensing the shift, promised vague cooperation. At Internal Affairs, Raven and Elise worked non-stop with federal agents and outside auditors. They built a master file: every name, every fake report, every erased complaint laid bare. One night, Elise handed Raven a new folder. Inside, panicked emails from Silent Shields, desperate deals for immunity, blame pushed downward. "They're cracking," Elise said. "Mercer's circle is falling apart." Raven gave a quiet smile. It wasn't over, but the first cracks were showing. "They know it's done," she said. "Now we see who falls first." Across the city, lights burned late in offices where power once felt untouchable. Those who had thrived in silence were now trapped in the open. The truth had left them nowhere to hide. At the courthouse, reporters swarmed the steps. Inside, Raven stood calm in the hallway, watching it all unfold. Elise stood beside her, folder in hand: evidence, testimonies, everything they'd uncovered. Down the corridor, Thompson sat at the defense table, stripped of his swagger and his badge, awaiting judgment. The charges came one by one. Excessive force, false arrests, tampered evidence, conspiracy. Every name of every victim read aloud. Thompson didn't lift his head. His fists clenched, silent and cornered. He knew this was no longer his game. Across town, Marla Ditt's name joined his in public reports. The fallout had only just begun. Denise's actions weren't violent, but the civil lawsuits hit hard. Her own video became evidence, played nonstop on news and social media. Defamation, emotional distress, civil conspiracy lawsuits piled up. crushing the Cranston family's reputation. She was banned from luxury stores, abandoned by her social circle, and left exposed. The mayor, scrambling, apologized to Raven and announced reforms: new review boards, transparency mandates, accountability promises. But Raven accepted no apologies. She didn't need empty words from people who once stayed silent. Her win wasn't symbolic, it was real. Outside the courthouse, the crowd stepped aside, not out of fear or pity, but respect. Reporters shouted questions. Raven paused at the top of the stairs, the city behind her. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Justice doesn't end with a few names, it ends when the system itself is rebuilt. We're not finished." She walked away, calm and certain. Elise joined her, smiling. "You're back on the news." "Good," Raven replied. "Let them hear it." Protesters still filled the streets, not just for punishment, but lasting change. Behind them, Denise stumbled out, trying to hide, her arrogance gone. Her fall would be just as public as her pride. Raven didn't feel triumph, only the weight of doing what was right. Real justice was messy, imperfect, but worth fighting for. For the first time in years, she believed not in the system as it was, but in what it could become. The city lights glowed outside, but inside the chief's office, silence hung heavy. Raven Holloway stood firm, evidence in hand. Across from her, Chief Mercer rose slowly, her pride cracking beneath the weight of consequences. "You've made a mess," Mercer snapped. Raven didn't flinch. "I didn't make it. I just stopped hiding it." Mercer crossed her arms, defensive. "You want my resignation?" "No," Raven said calmly, placing the folder on the desk. "I'm offering you a choice. Step down quietly, or we go public with everything." The folder lay open, proof of corruption, cover-ups, and abuse. Mercer's hands twitched. "And if I refuse?" "Then every file gets released. Every victim story goes live." Mercer's anger flared. "You think that makes you a hero?" Raven leaned in. "I didn't break this department. You did. I just won't let it rot in silence anymore." Mercer scoffed. "They'll turn on you. You'll be the villain." Raven didn't blink. "Maybe. But I'll know I did the right thing." Silence followed. Then Mercer spoke coldly. "I won't resign." Raven nodded. "Then get ready, Chief. The walls are closing in." She turned and left, the door shutting behind her with finality. As she walked the hall, heads turned. Officers, staff watching, no longer afraid. Not doubt, but respect. At the elevator, Elise waited, phone in hand. "She's refusing," Raven said. Elise gave a grim smile. "Good. The public will enjoy watching her fall." The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside. The reckoning had begun. The energy was electric. Inside the courthouse, every seat filled as the long-awaited reckoning began. Thompson sat tense and pale, surrounded by evidence of a decade of abuse. Outside, the crowd demanded justice, and inside, the system finally delivered. The prosecution presented everything: falsified reports, coerced statements, erased footage, each piece irrefutable. But Mercer wasn't done. Her allies tried one last tactic: smear Raven. A loyalist took the stand, accusing Raven of complicity. The room shifted, whispers rising. Raven stayed still. Then came the response: a sealed file, time-stamped, notarized, her documented warnings, her protests, her efforts to stop the very corruption now laid bare. The smear collapsed instantly. The witness squirmed. The jury listened. Thompson was indicted on all counts. The court erupted. Outside, cheers broke out as the headlines rolled in. Justice had landed, not with noise but with proof. Raven didn't celebrate. She stood steady, folder in hand, eyes ahead. Elise met her with a smile. "You crushed them." Raven just nodded. The truth did. The chant outside swelled. What they'd started could no longer be silenced. Not now. Not ever. The fallout was swift. The full internal affairs report exposed years of corruption and cover-ups. Silent Shields was dismantled. Officers once protected by rank and silence were suspended, investigated, or forced out. Civil suits flooded in. Thompson was sentenced, stripped of his badge and freedom. Denise Cranston faced public disgrace, lawsuits, and financial ruin. Mercer, the chief behind it all, was fired on live TV. Her allies vanished, her legacy reduced to scandal. Reform followed fast. Body cams became mandatory. A civilian review board gained full oversight. Whistleblowers were protected. And through it all, Raven Holloway stayed focused, meeting with leaders, drafting policy, and rebuilding what had been broken. The city still bore scars, but it had opened its eyes. One night, standing outside the new accountability center, Elise handed Raven a coffee and asked, "Think it'll last?" Raven looked across the skyline, protest banners still waving, murals rising on old walls, and answered, "Yes. Too many people are watching now." At the jewelry store where it all began, a quiet ceremony was held. A bronze plaque was unveiled. "Let what happened here never be repeated." Raven stood silently among the crowd, no badge, no speech. She didn't need one. Her presence said it all. Real justice had begun, and this time it wasn't going away. Raven didn't need to speak. At the ceremony, she stood quietly as the bronze plaque caught the light. "Let what happened here never be repeated." That was enough. The same store where she was humiliated now honored the truth. Outside, the city was changing. Badges no longer guaranteed silence. Justice, once buried, had been forced into the light. A young cadet approached her, eyes bright. "Because of you, I believe I can make a difference." Raven smiled. "Then do it right." As she walked away, the city behind her and the future ahead, one truth remained clear: they tried to silence her. Instead, she made them listen. Note: this story is entirely fictional and created for the purpose of raising awareness. It highlights issues of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose violence, prejudice, and injustice in all forms. Viewer discretion is advised.